Hey folks, it's Bill. You're watching Bill's Box of Sound, and you're about to see a really fun interview with Joe Travers, the Vaultmeister of the Frank Zappa Vault. Newly employed by Universal, it's all good, and you're going to find out all about it. So I'm not going to yak a lot. I'm just going to say, if you like what you see, please press the like on the video. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And get yourself ready to enjoy a really fun interview with Joe Travers, a true Zappa fan, a true record collector, and a true nice guy. Let me just start.
Hey, Bill's Box of Sound, dude.
That's right. I'm going to read an introduction, and then we'll start going off, and we'll be flying on full automatic.
Sweet.
All right. My guest on Bill's Box of Sound today is a bit of a big thing in the Zappa universe, who has been responsible for assisting with the archaeology and assemblage of audio for the majority of all Frank Zappa releases since at least 1996. Now, let's see. He's played drums for Z, Zappa Plays Zappa, Duran Duran, Lisa Loeb, Billy Idol, The Motels, The Wilsons, Rich Robinson, Mike Keneally and Beer for Dolphins, Eric Johnson, Joe Satriani, and too many others to mention. He is currently the drummer for the Zappa Band, an all-star ensemble of past members of bands led by Frank Zappa. And despite the fact that I've been playing drums longer than this guy's been alive, he is hands down a much better drummer than I will ever be. He's also a proud member of the vinyl community. Ladies and gents, friends, and everyone in between, here he is, the pride of Erie, Pennsylvania, and the once and still Vaultmeister, Joe Travers.
Wow. You know, I didn't know that you were a drummer. Why didn't I know that?
I don't know. I don't publicize it that much.
Oh, okay. So you're a drummer. Well, that makes sense, you know, because you have such great musical taste, and so you're actually a musician too. I mean, I've seen you plunk around on guitar in some of your videos, and so I knew that you could, like, you know, that you could play, but I didn't know that drums was your main thing. Wow.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I mean, ever since I was 5 years old, I was banging on suitcases with pencils.
That's amazing. I was banging on my floor with plastic sticks along with my little record player.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the big 2-ton gorilla in the room, and it has been for a few weeks, has been the Universal deal with the Zappa catalog. So I want to make things clear and get things positive, because as soon as it was announced, people just started getting negative all over the place. And I'm thinking, God, what is your problem, folks?
Hey, well, that's surprising.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I'm not on Facebook at all, so I don't get a chance to read what people say there. So just know that I'm fairly ignorant to whatever people might be saying on that platform.
Yeah.
So I'm probably a little out of the know about what some of the negativity would have been.
Well, that and you know what? That's not a bad thing, because you know, I've been tempted to quit Facebook many times myself. So I feel you there. I mean, you've stayed off all the social media outlets, and you're almost staying completely, almost off of the Steve Hoffman forums, and I think you're wise to do so. Because
yeah, I hear you. I mean, I'm on Reddit and I'm on the Hoffman forum, and sometimes I'm on Zappateers, but I'm barely on those things. And most of the time, I'm just leaving little comments about, like, you know, when I'm on Reddit and I see someone just got, you know, like, for instance, 2 days ago, somebody got Waka Jawaka at a friggin' some, you know, used, like, store or something. I don't know what it was, but he got a
or something like that.
Yeah, it was like, you know, like you know, whatever. But anyway, this person scored it for $2, and I was like, hell yeah, you did. Like, I'll always be like the person to be like the cheerleader in the background, going, I can't believe you got Waka Jawaka for $2.
Indeed. So now, Zappa Records started doing business with the Universal in 2012, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and as far as anybody with eyes can see, it's gone really well, especially with you and Amit steering the releases in the right direction. Now that UME owns the catalog, it looks like it's going to be more or less business as usual.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Okay.
right. Or at
And
least it's obviously early days, right? It's early days, but that's the plan. Um, is to just keep, because obviously over the past, I don't know, what has it been, like 5 years, 6 years, or whatever it's been. I mean, we've been averaging a certain amount of releases per year, and it's been going great. And so Universal, there's no reason for them to want to stop that progression. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, the content is there,
mhm,
and the sales are there, the fan base is there, the interest is there, the success rate is there. So, let's just keep doing it.
exactly. And now, one rumor is that the Zappa Trust has been dissolved completely.
Well, I don't have any. There's nothing that I can really say about that. That's
That's a
that.
family thing.
Yeah, that's a family issue. I
Gotcha.
obviously I am now working for Universal, doing what I was doing for the trust. I'm now doing it for them. So I can only be, super happy about that transition, because otherwise, for the first time in 29 years, I would no longer be seeing a paycheck from the Zappa family. I mean, can you believe that? 29 years.
That's amazing.
It's a crazy run, man.
And now, is Amit still continuing in his capacity?
Amit's doing really great. I can't speak for what he's doing as well because there's stuff coming around the corner. So, but yeah, all is good. You know,
Yeah, because I know that he's got other business interests as well. So,
exactly.
and
He's like his mom in that he's one of those guys that just has so many irons in the fire at once, and it's very interesting to see which of those irons get hot. You know, because
mhm,
he's nonstop with ideas, and he's a good businessman, and he knows what he's doing, and it's really interesting because he's got so many opportunities constantly happening at once. I don't know how he keeps track of all of it.
in that case, it's a big win-win for the Zappa family, for you, and for all Zappa fans everywhere.
Yeah, everything is basically going to stay the same, as far as the rate of releases and the type of releases. And also, there's some things that Universal's interested in doing that I'm excited about as well. That's going to be coming around the corner. I can't, you have to remember that I'm on, working for a corporation like that. You really have to, I mean, out of respect to Gail and the trust, I was always never really spilling a lot of secrets about what was coming around the corner project wise, because I didn't want to spoil any kind of an announcement or any kind of plan that Gail might have had, that kind of thing. So it really wasn't my job to just go out there and start telling the world what I'm working on. It just wasn't cool. And I kind of have to have that same respect for Universal as well, even more so probably because it's a corporation, and I don't want to jeopardize my gig. But yeah, I mean, I know that I can talk about the things that have been announced, and I can also talk a little bit about future vault plans and what's in it and what's not in it, and what the fans want to see and hear and
Right.
things like that. But I can't divulge a massive amount of details on future projects yet because I don't want to trump a major company like Universal.
That makes complete sense because if you've got something planned, you don't want to announce it until it's absolutely for sure going to go through because something may go wrong and you may have to stop that.
Yeah, and sometimes things get pushed and delayed as well.
Right.
That's happened a lot on some of our anniversary things on the past, which has been a bummer because I want to make sure that some of these anniversary things that we do happen in the year that it happened.
Mhm.
Like the anniversary. That's the reason why we're working on it. But sometimes logistics get in the way, and production gets in the way, and things get pushed, and then anniversary issues get kind of like delayed another 4 months, and that pushes it into the next year. Shit
Right.
like that can happen a lot, but at least the intention is always there.
Exactly. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of questions that I have from viewers about future releases that we'll go over later on, but
Sure.
I want to detour this a little bit. I stumbled onto a listening party video that you did for a drum workshop where you talked about getting hooked on vinyl very early in your life, which was very exciting for me because I've been a record nut since I was 5 years old as well. I mean, my mom would take me to the store, and she could do as much shopping as she wanted. She just dropped me off at the record department, and when she was done, she'd pick me up there.
Yeah, my mom wouldn't know where to find me. It would either be in the toy department or it would be in the record department, one of the two. It's like, if I wasn't in one, I was in the other. But yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, well, first of all, music is like my priority. Always. I'm just a self-proclaimed musicologist, minor musicologist. I mean, I don't try to be some kind of expert, but I've spent 51 years of my life collecting and listening to music almost every single day. And if I wasn't doing it, someone around me and my family was. So my upbringing was just constant vinyl spinning, cassettes, 8-tracks in the car. It was just music all the time. It was just crazy. And I was born with the collector bug. I think you understand what I mean. It's like, when you're a collector, you just really enjoy investing in a collection, and it's just something that makes you happy. And I started a record collection very young, in my abnormally young, actually. And that's because of my family being musicians and supporting me at such a young age. But like for Christmases and birthdays and holidays and stuff, it's like I didn't care about Easter candy. I didn't care about whatever. I wanted records. I wanted records all the time. That was like my favorite thing in the world. So every time Easter would come, or any it's an excuse to get a new record. Really, that's just kind of how it was. And it just blossomed. When I started getting old enough to afford my own record halls and stuff like that, man, I used to go to your town all the time and go to Coventry in the golden days in the 80s when it was Stiff Records and Record Exchange and Irv's, the restaurant Irv's there on Coventry. We used to go there every summer, and I would spend, an average of $60 to $100 that I saved, all year, save that money to go to Cleveland and have a used record store haul, because, back then used records was not easy to come by, especially in my town of Erie, PA. Like new records were everywhere, but used records, it wasn't happening as much. Now it's everywhere. Used records you can find all over the place, but in the 80s, there wasn't that many stores that had them. Anyway, so check this out. So in 1988, when I went to Boston and Berklee College of Music, there was no way I was going to bring my 1,000 albums that I had with me. So all that stuff stayed at home. CD was was like really in its heyday.
Right.
And I stopped buying vinyl for many years because of my lifestyle, moving, around from Boston to Los Angeles, and, trying not to have a million boxes of stuff, and just sticking with CDs for a real long time. And then what happened was, when vinyl started coming, well, it never really went away, but when it started coming back a little bit in like 2009, let's say, 2008, 2009, in that area there, Record Store Day was starting to come around. Gail was realizing that the market for vinyl was coming back, and so the demand for Frank Zappa reissues started happening, right? So, of course, being in the position I'm in, I have to supervise all of those things. So as I'm like learning more and more about mastering and going and supervising the process and working with Chris Bellman and Bernie Grunman over at, it just, and I think you can understand this, man, it just jump-started my whole obsession about vinyl again. Like I had left it behind for so long, and then all of a sudden it was just like, holy shit, this is on right now. So I had to buy like a really nice turntable. I've been through like 3 of them now. It's like I keep upgrading and getting different turntables, because I have so much fun trying to, trying to find like the turntable that's turning me on the best right now. You know what I mean? But like,
what's your main turntable right now?
Well, right now it's a Fluence.
Okay.
I like the Fluence, the RT85. That's just like it's an entry audiophile, entry consumer audiophile turntable that has a nice cartridge, and it's got the speed selector, which I like. I don't like messing with the belt, having to manually put the belt on 45 or 33 like those projects.
Yeah, I had that for a while.
Yeah, I had it too. I had the debut. That was the first one that I got, the carbon debut.
Right.
And it was noisy, and I didn't like the manual thing, and it was it was good for its time, but I needed it to. And then I went to a U-turn, believe it or not. I went to a U-turn, which
That's good.
I like that company, and I thought that for the price they were doing cool things. But again, having a manual turntable, I understand what that's all about, but dealing with the belt and it kept falling off with the U-turn. The belt kept falling off all the time, and it was such a pain in the ass to put on. I was really getting sick of that. And so the Fluence came around, and first of all, I really like the plexiglass platters, or the clear
The
platters.
acrylic platter,
Yeah, thank you. Yes, the acrylic platters. Yes, I really like those a lot. I like not having a mat. I like to put the records right on it. It's just cool, to be able to do that. And I like the Ortofon cartridges. I like the blue a lot. I'm a fan. I mean,
I started out with the red, and then I went to the blue.
Same here. Same here.
And day.
Same here. Same here. I started with the red, and I was fine with the red. But then as soon as I got the Fluence and the blue came with it, I was like, holy shit, that's quite a difference. I definitely could tell. And the speed selector going from 33 to 45 without having to mess up. That's why. And I like the way the dust cover opens and stays in place on the Fluence. So the Fluence really just kind of like made it for me. But I realized that, there's a lot of other turntables out there that are just, like a Technics or, that kind of thing. I actually like I like the Technics SL220, the vintage 80s 220. That thing is great. It's a semi-automatic. It's the one I grew up with. And, you start it yourself, but then it ejects itself at the end of the thing. It's really nice. I love it. I thought that thing sounded great, and you can put any cartridge you want on it. You can only get them used on eBay, but, they can go for around $250 or less. But, so anyway, but yeah, I'm full on vinyl again, especially since I had to start doing the production for the trust on the reissues. It just threw me right back into the deep end again.
Great. And you're now making videos. Well, you started out with just music videos as far as you're playing and other things on your JT Media content channel, and now you're making vinyl community videos as well.
Yeah, and I should be doing more of them, but I'm such a lazy guy, and also I'm always so busy. But Bill, I have to say your channel inspired me to do that, because your channel, and there's a bunch of other ones. There's 45 RPM audiophile. Yeah. I follow Bob Bradley's YouTube channel.
Yep.
I follow there's a bunch of them, man. Melinda, right? Melinda's got she's cute. I like what she does. But I mean, there's just I just realized that I watch YouTube more than I watch regular television, and I subscribe to channels that have my interest. And whether it's music related or vinyl records related, I can, go down the rabbit hole every day, watching what people are posting and stuff. And I love, by the way, seeing the unboxing videos that, especially specifically what you do, but what other people do. And then also when they play them on the Zappa vinyl that I work so hard to try to raise the bar and make sure that they're done so perfectly. And I love to see on YouTube when people, enjoy the fruits of the labor, man. It's like, it's just really rewarding to see it get out there and people realize how great they really sound and how great they're being done. So that's just rewarding for me, and I get into it. But I need to do more stuff, and my viewage is small. Like I don't get really that many views, but honestly, I almost don't really care. I just do it for myself, and if other people see it, cool,
Mm-hmm. Aside from Zappa, who are your number one favorite artists?
Whew.
I mean, as far as collecting goes, what are you really heavy on?
Well, I really love classic rock.
Mm-hmm.
I love Grand Funk. I love Todd Rundgren. I love 60s rock. I love Nuggets type stuff. Like the Nuggets series is just beautiful. The vinyl that they've been doing. I love I love soundtracks. I love Alice Cooper. I love Jimi Hendrix. I love David Bowie, Ted Nugent, Aerosmith. I get into all that kind of stuff. But then I'm also like, I love jazz. I love jazz a ton. I love Thelonious Monk and Keith Jarrett and Chick Corea and Miles Davis. I mean, that's super, and Herbie Hancock and Pat Metheny. It's all, I love John Scofield. These are the artists that I normally go to, when I'm on Spotify, because their catalogs are so huge and so there's so much there that it's just like it's always fun to just because I pay for Spotify and I get access to all that stuff, and I love to just discover the amount of output that these amazing musicians have done for the last 50 years. It's crazy. So I'm not the thing is that I love all that stuff so much, but I try not to spend the amount of money going crazy buying vinyl for all those things. Like if I started collecting the entire Miles Davis catalog, I mean, just that alone.
Oh yeah.
I'll have a room like yours, which, by the way, I live in a small little apartment in North Hollywood here. There is no way that I would be able to house it. I would literally have to get, I'd have to get a little, storage space, rent a storage space to get that's air conditioned.
Yep. I hear you. But speaking of collecting Miles stuff, for a while I was kind of like not enjoying the Miles Electric Miles stuff. Like after he came back with Man in the Horn and stuff like that, I really had a hard time getting into those albums. But I heard for the first time last week, We Want Miles.
That's a strong one.
That's unbelievable. Forget Bitches Brew.
Yeah. No, I know. Like Man from the Horn and You're Under Arrest and Tutu. I mean, that whole, there's the Aura is interesting. And then the Amandella. Yeah, Amandella. There's one called anyway. The Warner Brothers years and stuff. I mean, there's some decent things from the last period of Miles before, when Foley was in the band, and I really love that drummer, Ricky. I forget his name, Ricky something. Really dig that drummer. I love his pocket. I love his sound. I love how restrained and perfect everything is that guy does. Ricky Wellman. He's inspiring of a drummer to me. But when Miles came right back and it was like Mike Stern and it was still Al Foster and there was some weird things happening there. But when Sculf came around, We Want Miles and things started to kind of head in the right direction, I thought.
Yeah, I mean that album just blew me away, and it just recently got re-released on vinyl. But I'm going to try and find an original because I've gotten a couple of those Get On Down reissues, and they weren't the best.
Yeah, I heard. I was definitely checking that out, and I didn't splurge on any of those.
Now, turning to your drumming career. I know that before you became the Vaultmeister, you were in Dweezil and Amit's band Z.
Yeah.
How did you hook up with them the first time?
It was all Mike Keneally. Mike and I had established a friendship when we met each other in 1991 when he was with Dweezil's band. They came to Boston and did a performance at Tower Records. It was Scott Tunis, Mike Keneally, Josh Freese, Amit, Dweezil. And I was blown away by that band. I was just like, holy shit. And I was a student at Berkeley, and I was a huge Zappa fan. But I wasn't real aware of what Dweezil was doing. And I really did love the Confessions record a lot. Mm-hmm. I really, really, really loved that record. And so I was learning that music. I was just learning it just to learn it. And so when they came into town, I was working at Tower Records. So I was able to have access to them that most people didn't, right? And of course, me being me, I had to do it. So I went, Gail was there and Diva was there, and I met all of them for the first time. I met Josh for the first time. He was super cool. I stayed away from Scott. I tried not to I treaded lightly around Scott, but Mike was extremely warm and inviting, and we went to dinner. I was introduced to Mike from a mutual friend, another Zappa fan, keyboard player that I was friends with at Berkeley. So I was introduced to Mike through my friend because they had a friendship. So that was how I got in. Well, basically, long story short, after they left, Mike and I, now remember, this is without cell phones, this is without internet. So Mike and I kept in touch through phone calls and letters. And when the decision came for me to move to Los Angeles, first person I let know was Mike. I was like, hey man, I'm moving to LA. I'll be there in September. You know, this was 1992. I was 22 or 23. I can't remember. And I said, man, I'm coming to town. I can't wait to hang, you know. And Mike had just finished his first album, Hat. So, you know, when I got there, we were listening to Hat together, and he was introducing me to, you know, his friends, and my network started to expand. And within 6 months, I got the call from Dweezil because Mike told Dweezil, Joe Travers has moved to LA. Now, Dweezil and I met for the first time at Zappa's Universe, those shows in New York City that happened in 1991. So he remembered who I was when Mike mentioned me, you know, and said, hey, you remember Joe Travers? He's now living in LA. And they needed a drummer, you know, because Toss Panos wasn't going to do the live band, although he recorded a lot of stuff for the sessions. And so they needed a drummer. So they started having drum auditions, and Mike called me in, and I went down there, and I got the gig. You know, it was plain and simple. I just got the gig. And the next thing I knew, I was in the band, and I was on payroll, and I was, you know, a professional drummer for the first time in my life. And the rest is history.
That's a great story. And, you know, and I can vouch for Mike Keneally being that wonderful, because way back then, I had a little teeny business selling Zappa records by mail order.
Oh, really?
And Mike wrote to me, and when Z played the Peabody's Down Under in Cleveland, I went there and saw him again, and he says, hey, how's that mail order thing turning out? And I said, it didn't turn out so well.
I remember that gig.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Wait, did you see, was Josh in? Because I played in Cleveland. My first tour was Z. Because when Josh was in the band, it wasn't called Z. It was just called the Dweezil Zappa Band.
Oh, no, this was Z. And
okay, it was definitely me then.
Okay, and you did the whole PV medley.
Yes.
Or well, it's been known as the PV medley, but it's just the whole hundreds of songs. Oh my God.
I know, that medley was absolutely insane. And to think that, you know, there was, you know, you had a band on payroll rehearsing, you know, 6 hours a day for, you know, 5 days a week, 6 hours a day at least. And we got that thing together, man. You know, and you really have to have the memorization chops. You know, you have to be able to play by ear, because, you know, I mean, I wasn't writing any of that stuff down when we were learning it. We were just running it and running it and running it, chunk to chunk to chunk, link to link. And we were just retaining it in memory. And, you know, we were getting paid to do so. We had the time. And next thing you know, it was like, it morphed, it changed too. Like at first it was all 70s. And then the PV thing, when that PV thing that you mentioned came around, they wanted us to do that style of a medley, but for all 3 decades, 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, or no, 70s, 80s, 90s. And it was so crazy because Dick Clark was there and he introduced us. It was like, holy shit.
All that stuff's on YouTube.
I know.
So, folks, if you're watching this, even if you're not a Zappa fan, if you want to see some unbelievable playing and some unbelievable laser sharp mashups of dozens of songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, look for the PV medley.
Yeah. And Ahmet is just hilarious on that thing. Yeah. And that was one of the things about being in a band with him. He was so unpredictable, and he had so much energy, and he was so freaking hilarious that every moment you never knew what was going to happen on stage. You just never knew. It was so fun to be drumming back there and have such an extremely tight unit, you know, this extremely rehearsed kick-ass band with a front man that you just never knew what was going to happen next. And that's what, like, I mean, let's think of it. You know, the Doors, I mean, you know, Jim Morrison, some of the best frontmen in the world had that kind of edge to them. Right. Where you just really didn't know what was going to happen next. And it kept everybody and everything, including the audience, on their toes at all times. And that energy is priceless. And Ahmet had it dialed in, man. He was amazing.
and he carries on with that to this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. And now you're with the Zappa Band, which has you, Mike, see, is Jamie on bass?
Jamie Kime on guitar, Scott
Right.
Tunis on bass, Robert Martin, and Ray White.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
And you just completed your first little highlight tour.
that's
Not
right.
headlining tour.
Right. Yes, that's right. We did it in June, and
Mhm.
it was only 2 weeks, but it was really great to get the chance to finally go out there as our own entity and not opening up for someone else. I mean, as you know, we opened up for King Crimson last year, and that was a crazy great experience for us. It
Yeah,
was great.
I almost got to see that show. Unfortunately, my wife got sick and I had to stay home that night.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I think I was reaching out to see if you wanted tickets or something, but you know, that was really great for us. And I told our manager or our agent, our agency, I said, please work on trying to get the Zappa Band's own tour to capitalize on this momentum, because it's like the time is now. We can't wait around. We can't let this die. We have to do this now. So unfortunately, because of the state of the industry, and we are still reeling from this whole COVID nonsense and everything. So unfortunately, we only were able to generate 2 weeks of work for the entire year so far, which is so depressing. And during those 2 weeks, it was a mixture of A market and B market cities, right? So like we were really strong as expected in the Maryland show and the New York show, but then we played some of these little smaller places, and it's just hard. The demographic, the 50 and up demographic, are just still not coming out, whether it's inflation, the prices, or just they can't afford to get sick, and COVID is still around. So unfortunately the turnout was an average of about 250 to 350 a night, depending on where we played. We had great shows and we were completely excited to be out there, but the industry just isn't on our side yet. So I'm really hoping that we'll be able to still create opportunities for the Zappa Band to go out and play while we still can. And thankfully we do have a Halloween run scheduled at the Baked Potato here in Los Angeles. We're going to be playing 4 nights in a row, 2 shows a night, from the 28th to the 31st. And it'll be our second year doing it. Last year, we had a really great Halloween run at the Baked Potato. It was so fun. And they were interested in doing it again. So we're going to do 4 nights, 2 shows a night. And I'm really looking forward to keep the wheels greased with that run.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, when you did your tour with King Crimson, a number of those shows were taped and then sold and streamed on Qobuz.
Oh, yeah.
And I downloaded the Cleveland show, and it sounded just like a soundboard tape.
That's basically what it was.
Yeah.
Ahmed had made a deal with Qobuz to release those shows, and they're warts and all. That's kind of what that whole kind of thing is. And so I think almost all of them are available that we did. I can't remember how many cities.
Almost all of them, yeah.
So it's cool that they're out there. I mean, we were playing well, and it was what was really fun about that thing was having the drummers from King Crimson sit in with us. That was really Gavin sat in on one, I think 2 shows, and Jeremy sat in on I think like 3 or 4 shows, and Jacko sat in on one show with us too, or maybe 2. It was just great. Having that interaction of those guys in that band coming on stage and playing with us. Well, especially with the Zappa veterans. I mean, with Scott and Robert and Ray. That was a highlight for them. It's just like me. Those guys grew up listening to that stuff, right? For years and years and years. And so to get a chance to not only, meet those guys, but actually play music with them is a dream come true. And I'm so grateful that I get this opportunity to, try to generate work for this band while we can. And so, we'll see how long it lasts.
Cool. Do you have any other drumming that you're doing lately?
Well, I keep busy in Los Angeles. I play in a band with Eric Dover and Coco Powell and Jim Wheeler. And look those names up on Google. They're all industry cats, and they're really fun. And we have there used to be this place in Manhattan Beach called Ponchos, It was a Mexican restaurant that had a little tiny venue connected to it. And for the past 30 years, on Fridays and Saturday nights, Poncho's would always have an all-star cover band playing there. And these are guys in the industry. We're talking like Chris Frazier on drums, or Styx's drummer. Oh God, what the hell's his name? Why am I blanking on that name? But Todd Sugarman, okay, who plays with Styx.
Okay.
Now, so these are and Jimmy Paxson, who plays with Stevie Nicks and the Dixie Chicks and Ben Harper. I mean, lots and lots of industry guys and gals. Always, there's like a rotating cast of great musicians that would always play this place all the time. And I ended up becoming the house drummer for it, maybe 8 years ago or something. Well, COVID killed that opportunity for the band to play there anymore. The place decided that they didn't want to do live music after 30 years and always having a following and people always coming to see this damn band. And now we didn't have a residency any longer. So we've been finding other places to play. We're actually playing a couple different places fairly often. And we have a new bi-weekly place in Manhattan Beach now called the Strand House. And we also play the Lighthouse, which is a very famous jazz club down on Hermosa Pier. It's great playing there because I go in there and I see pictures of Miles and all that stuff, all the years that they were playing. I'm like, holy shit, man, the history in this place is ridiculous. But anyway, so that's a long story, a long response to, yes, I play in Los Angeles. I'm the house drummer at the Whiskey A Go-Go on Tuesday nights, which is also now bi-weekly since COVID. But it's called the Ultimate Jam Night, run by Chuck Wright, and I've been the house drummer for that as well. So I do keep busy in Los Angeles, just like keeping the wheels greased and playing around. But if I'm not recording or doing my own thing, and if I'm not with the Zappa Band, then I'm Vaultmeistering constantly.
Yeah. And speaking of Vaultmeistering, we better stop talking shop and start talking Zappa, or else people are going to tune out.
Okay.
We got the new release coming out in October. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Let me see if I can pronounce this properly.
Hey, the first IG track went out last night. Did you see that? The
No.
First, yeah. Wind Up Working in a Gas Station prototype went out on to the streaming sites last night.
Okay. I don't subscribe to any of those. Is it on Amazon as well?
It's on YouTube.
Okay. I will find it.
Yep.
And it's pronounced, if I am correct, Zagreb, Ljubljana.
Zagreb and Ljubljana.
Okay.
Yeah, real close. Yeah, it's crazy. I learned from hearing Frank say it on the tapes. I just
when I heard about this, I went into my my bootlegs that I've downloaded over the years and found one of that show, which I only had about a half an hour of, and it's like, okay, how does he pronounce it? And that's how I got it as well.
Zagreb, you might be right about that. The Zagreb or Zagreb, whatever.
Right.
But I say Zagreb. It might be Zagreb. You're totally right. But Ljubljana is the way that Frank says it in the show. So I just copped it.
So these two dates, they happened smack dab in the middle of a U.S. tour.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that Herb Cohen somehow managed to arrange to go to such an obscure place. And not only is the history of it obscure, but the tapes are obscure too, and they were not easy to deal with. Not only were they recorded on a 1/2-inch 8-track, which is a really weird format. But the recording layout, the way that the instruments were laid out on the 8 tracks, it didn't leave a lot for us to work with. It was really, really hard. I'll give you some examples, but one of the things that was really frustrating, and people should know, is that on a 1/2-inch 8-track, okay, normally 8-track tapes are 1 inch. So you have 1 inches of tape width, which allows you to have fatter tracks. So they sound great. But on a 1/2-inch tape with 8 tracks, the tracks are very small. Okay. They're very thin. And we noticed that as we had to bake the tapes. And so as we were transferring the tapes, when you have all faders up and you're listening to all the 8 tracks, it was really hard to be able to tell whether or not any of those 8 tracks were being tainted at all by any dirt or anything. And so it would be such a bummer because I would take the transfers home. We had to go to an outside place to do it because the machine is so obscure. So John Struther at Penguin Audio in Glendale was great. He came to the rescue. And so, but I would bring these things home and I would listen to the transfers. And I was like, son of a bitch, from one section to, another section, the high end would just completely drop out on the left channel of the audience tracks, just completely drop out. And that was because the head got dirty just in that little bit. And it's crazy because it never infiltrated any of the tracks near it. So I had to go back multiple times. Poor John, thank God he had patience. But, I had to keep going back and rebaking the tapes and to be able to get clean passes of these rolls. And there was 3 reels per show. So that's 6 reels of tape that we had to keep on, making sure. It was a pain in the ass. And then in the end, the stuff that we had to mix with was, so you had an isolated guitar. You had one track that had vocals and saxophone on it, okay, simultaneous. Then the 3rd track was bass. The 4th track and the 5th track was a PA mix, a stereo PA mix, okay, keep that in mind. Then the next 2 tracks was a stereo audience pair. And the last track was a mono drum track. Now, where's Frank's vocal? Where's Frank's DI? All these things are hidden in the thing. So we didn't have control over certain things. The drum track was only the top end of the kit. In other words, the cymbals, the tom-toms, and the snare. All the bass drum and the low end was on the PA mix. So you have to have the PA mix up, which has Frank's vocal and a little bit of the bass guitar and the kick drum on it. And you have to try and find the right level of the drum track that has all the top end on it to make it blend nicely. And then sometimes it would change in the PA mix. So it was a constant crapshoot. Plus, here's another thing that happened with the transfers. And by the way, we are trumping the Zappacast right now because normally I always give these, types of technical details at the Zappacast. But this is a Bill's Box of Sound exclusive right now. The audience tracks were taped so incredibly loud. They were so much louder in level than the rest of the other tracks. So like as the tape was playing, we had, and everything was encoded with DBX, which is another old noise reduction format. It was so old. So you have to have the gear to do this stuff. So we had everything at 0, but then we noticed that the audience tracks were just screaming. And the amount of low end on the audience tracks was just like, holy shit. It was just like, it was so, we had to roll off so much, the mix. It was, okay, so long story short, it was a bitch to mix. It was really hard because Frank's vocal was inside of a PA mix. We didn't have it isolated. Frank's guitar was isolated. We could do a little bit there, but it was only one of, his one part of his rig because his rig would have an amp track, a DI track, effects, that kind of stuff. So we only had control over one thing. And then the saxes, if the saxes and the vocals play at the same time, you can't balance them separately. Right. So one of them is going to be louder than the other. So it was just a constant struggle on this one. But I think historically that it was so worth it. And what we were able to do. Oh, one last thing about these tapes is that Zagreb and Ljubljana, they sound completely different. That's another thing. The PA mix for
never bad enough.
Yeah, the PA mix for Zagreb was super confined. There was hardly any stereo separation at all in like with the keyboards and with the the overall sound. But on Ljubljana, there was much more stereo separation in the PA track. So that means that when you listen to the tracks from Zagreb, you're going to notice that it's not so wide. You know, it's a little, it's confined, it's more confined. It's almost mono-esque. But then when it comes to the Beyond show, which is, by the way, is what, you know, the song that was featured on Frank Zappa Plays the Music of Frank Zappa, you'll hear that there's much more stereo. You know, Spence Chris Lou at that time mixed a lot of the audience mics into that thing, and it's just, you know, bouncing around all over the place. We didn't go too crazy with the audience mics. So yeah, I mean, you know, we're trying to make it talk, trying to make both shows talk to each other, you know, to make one kind of seamless show. And it works, and it's historical. I wouldn't say that it's the most, you know, sonic fidelity, you know, craziest, best sounding record in Frank's canon, but it's definitely listenable. There's no doubt. And it's historical, and the playing is great. And Frank's guitar playing is off the charts for me on this one. I just love listening to him play Black Napkins and Zoodalores. And then also the improvisations, you know, he's searching, he's stretching, he's in real time, he's hitting the band with riff after riff after section after section. And sometimes you can tell, like, oh, the band, they probably ran this, you know, sound check last week, so they kind of knew it a little bit. But like Filthy Habits was brand new, and it was, you know, and Wind Up Working in a Gas Station was brand new. 555 was pretty much brand new. So like all this shit was like, you know, it's great to be able to have a document of this stuff.
That's great. And now when the tapes are sent to Craig Parker Adams for the mixing, do you do the mixing with him, or do you leave him alone and then you come back when he's done?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's the process. I'll give him like preliminary notes, like I can be pretty specific about panning and you know, and that kind of stuff. But you know, like I want, like when we have the luxury, right? I like to have you know, the band kind of like being represented in the stereo spectrum, kind of like how it was live.
Yeah.
Like if Ray White was on the right, if Ray White was on the left and Ike Willis was on the right during the 1980 tour, you know, when all three of them are singing, that's how I want it. You know, I don't want it to be swapped. I want it to be, you know, like that. So I can be specific about that shit. But Craig really just, you know, does his thing. And then what happens is he'll do his thing. He'll send me refs, and then I'll make notes. Like, let's add a little reverb here. Let's, you know, let's turn the drums down here. They're too loud. Let's make sure that Ike's voice is centered here. You know, it's like things like that. And then I'll go to his place. We'll sit together and we'll go through the whole show, and we'll make, you know, we'll adjust my notes, and then you know, we'll probably do that process maybe once, twice, maximum 3 times if we're really getting super nitpicky. And then once the mixes are finished, then I will take them to the mastering engineer, and I'll sit with the mastering engineer. We'll come up with the right approach. You know, everything is different, obviously, but yeah, well, you know, like, are we going to go super loud? Are we going to go super limited? Are we going to go audiophile where we don't do limiting at all, and we just let it be? You know, it depends on the release, really.
Yeah,
and it also
parts that go along with that.
Oh my God, it's crazy. And I supervise all of it from the beginning to the end, from the transfers to the, you know, the editing of the thing, all the way to the creation of the DDPs that I send to Universal, the placement of the PQ codes, and, you know, all that stuff. You know, I'm doing all that stuff. So, and I love it. And it's great to be hands-on as, you know, as the creation of it is happening. It's great to be hands-on, but, you know, I'm not responsible for everything. I don't want to sound like some big Leo here. Craig is amazing, and the mastering engineers that we work with are always great. You know, we love John Polito, we love Bob Ludwig, we love Bernie Grunman, we love Chris Bellman. You know, there's a lot of great people that we work with, and it's kind of like a team. And as a team effort, that's what you end up getting at the end is the result of, you know, everybody's talents.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm probably going to go the extra mile and order the version with the extra photo prints in it, because it's not like $50 or $60 difference.
Yeah, a couple of them are from Gale, and another one is from a John Rudiak, who you know, was shooting Frank in the 70s, and was you know, they must have known each other, obviously, because he's shot many different shows. And I love his photography. And I think he has a son named Nelson who's out there somewhere. He reached out to Dweezil back when we were in Zappa Plays Zappa and established connection, but he never established connection with me. But anyway, it's great. I just mean, like, I wish that I was in touch with Nelson because we love using the Rudiak archive that's in the vault.
Fantastic. Okay, well, let's get on to some other questions from the fans here because I asked my viewers for questions, and I've already asked you some of the questions, and thanks to everybody who wrote in. But most of the questions were requests for Zappa or Zappa-related music that they want to see released in the future.
All right.
So we're probably going to do kind of like a lightning round here of requests, and you can answer each one. I know you can't divulge a lot about something that may or may not be planned for the future, but at least maybe you can let people know whether some things could be possible in the future, or whether if something that somebody requested, it's like, no way that's going to happen. That tape doesn't exist, or something like that, or it's too damaged, or we can't get it, or whatever.
Right.
So. Strangely enough, the first question is from this guy named Scott Parker, and it says, does Joe happen to know of any, has he found any tapes of Frank jamming with a band named Quill that played at Woodstock? And then he says,
geez.
Quill, brah.
Quill, dude.
All right. What's the inside joke on that?
Okay, so Scott and I had a bucket list moment, Bill, during this tour that we did with the Zappa Band in the summer. The bucket list item was that Scott Parker and myself and my two friends, Rudy and Gary from New York City, along with Scott's wife and girlfriend, we all went to Woodstock, Bethel. We went to Bethel, to the site of the Woodstock concert, which is, I've been there before and it was great, but this time I was able to go to the Woodstock Museum and see the museum, and they were very sweet and very accommodating. And after all was said and done, Scott and myself and my two buds, we went into the middle. We walked all the way down into the middle of the field, and it was a gorgeous day. It was so beautiful. The sky was blue and the field was pristine. And we sat right, check this out. We sat right in the middle of the field, and I pulled out my Bluetooth speaker and I called up Jimi Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock on Spotify. And we sat in the middle of the field and listened to it as we were because we were facing the stage, right?
Yeah.
It was an incredible, incredible moment. It was so awesome. I loved it. But it's so funny because Quill, I think Quill was a band that played it or something, but nobody really knows about them that much.
I don't know. You're going to have to ask Scott about that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we were laughing about Quill, like, dude, Quill, dude, like nobody knows about Quill. So we're the inside scoop, the cult. We're the cult members of the Quill fan club.
Yet another one of those psychedelic bands you've never heard of.
Right, Quill. And another one too that I discovered that didn't play Woodstock, but I discovered this band. And have you ever heard of a band called Tranquility, Bill?
No.
Yeah, nobody really knows about this group, but they're a British group, and they only had 2 records, and they used to tour the States in 1971 and 72. And then they got dropped. They were on Epic. Their first album is very like CSNY kind of influence, but their second album is amazing. It's called Silver. It's by a band called Tranquility, and I was able to score a sealed copy on eBay. And God. Yeah, so while Scott was going, dude, Quill, and I'm going, dude, Tranquility, man, It's pretty funny.
Okay.
So now you have to go track down Tranquility Silver.
Yeah, I'm going to start working on that right now.
It's on YouTube.
I was in Canada and I got a hold of a record by a group called Gun.
Oh yeah, I saw that. You showed that on your.
That's the Gervitz brothers.
Yeah. You showed that on your channel.
That's amazing. Okay, now I'm gonna put you on the line here. Vinyl releases.
Yeah.
Are we gonna see some vinyl in the next 12 months? Zappa wise.
Yes, you're gonna see vinyl in the next 4 months.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about these because they're killing. they're killing. I can't tell you what they are, but it's going to be awesome.
Are we talking Record Store Day?
No, and here's the thing about Record Store Day. I'm glad you brought that up. As you may have noticed, Frank Zappa hasn't participated in Record Store Day for like the last few years, and we used to do it every year. But the reason for that is because of the backlog of the pressing plants, right? And the state of the vinyl industry right now is in bad shape. The lead time to get vinyl done is at least 8 or 9 months. It's crazy. And the thing is that there are so many Frank Zappa projects coming out yearly, right? If we were like everybody else and we were doing one release every year, or some artists, they don't even do one release a year. They do a release every few years. We're a catalog artist, right? We're an archival artist, so there's we could do a lot of releases. The thing is that we do a lot of releases, and so because of that, we're saturating the market with so much stuff, and the vinyl is such a pain in the ass to do, and there's already so much Frank Zappa happening in the industry right now. It's just really hard for us to fit in, shoehorning in something else to happen for Record Store Day. It's expensive, it's a pain, but once vinyl actually gets back on track again, and these more pressing plants start opening up, and the state of the vinyl industry kind of gets back on track, hopefully we'll be able to start participating again, doing some more Record Store Day stuff. But it's not as if there's a shortage of Zappa. That's for sure.
I'm sure you guys would love to do it, but yeah, I understand with the state of the industry right now.
Yeah, it's hard.
And does Universal plan on taking the things that have already come out, like re-releases, and putting them back in and repressing them? They gonna keep them in the catalog?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that they deleted the physical on some titles just simply because they weren't selling. At least, obviously, that it's all available on the streaming. So thank God for that. But yeah, it's hard to see the justification of them printing CDs for certain titles again, which is just it's just a sign of the times, right?
State of the industry. Yeah. So folks, if you see them, grab them.
Yeah, grab them, seriously. And if you guys are really interested in having the catalog on CD, then I would start scouring record stores and eBay and Discogs and start finding the best prices that you can and try and grab them up, because I don't know when this stuff will ever get put back in production again, honestly.
Yeah, because people are asking about Yellow Shark on vinyl. Who knows?
Which is a great idea. It's a great idea, and it should be. Again, it's a digital recording, right? So you know how people are with the audio files. Oh, if it's digital, you can't. It's not going to be all analog. It's not. Well, in the cases of Frank's later output, everything is digital. So if we were going to put it on vinyl, we're going to have to cut from a digital master. But yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. Yes.
Well, the 1988 box was a great example of how you were able to take those digital tapes and make them sound great.
That's right. That's right.
And the vinyl does sound better than the CD.
That's right. So if there's an analog option that works, in other words, if the tape is in good condition and it's playing and it's no problem, if we were to choose to do digital over top of that, then I can understand the argument. But if the masters are only digital, then that's all we've got. So there you have it,
Yeah. Yeah. So the next question is some guy from Norway says, some years back, Amit promised me that a remastered vinyl version of Lather eventually would be released. Any news on that? Well, we just answered that question.
Well, I want that to happen. I definitely want that to happen, because, when that happens, it'll finally, after all these years, be, the composer's intent to have that box of vinyl out as vinyl, as a physical product. So it will definitely happen. I just don't know exactly when, because it's about order of projects, order of priorities right now. There is, as there is so much that we could do. There is so many things that we could do. Where do you start, right? So we've got a plan of action in place for the next few years, and so we just have to try and see what where the interest is on Universal's side of things, and how much it's going to cost, and how we're going to be able to fit it into the quarterly release schedule. And not being able to. Here's a as a fan, okay. That's why I'm disappointed that we don't get the opportunity to do Record Store Day as much as we used to, because it really opened up the possibilities of things like that happening. Like, yes, Lather could have been a Record Store Day exclusive, you know? Now we don't have that option as much. So when do we fit it in? You know, there's just so much to do and not enough time to do it. So
yeah. So that people are asking about if there's going to be a project object type thing for Waka Jawaka and Grand Wazoo. And then they go into the same thing with Overnight Sensation, because I said, well, you gave Apostrophe the crux of the biscuit.
Yeah. Right. Well, stay tuned.
Yep. And that's all I'll say about that. And are there extras that might pop up on a future Joe's Garage reissue?
Oh, you know, I worked on a future Joe's Garage issue when Gail was alive. She told me she wanted me to start doing that. I think it was at the 40th anniversary of it, I think. So I did start working on some stuff, and yes, there is things. There are things that are just killing, amazing. But then priorities changed for Gail, and she told me to stop working on that because we had other things that she wanted to do. So the answer to that is that I did start at one time compiling bits and pieces for Joe's Garage era stuff, but I haven't revisited it since. So, but the things that I found, oh my God.
Cool. Yeah, don't give up hope, people.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so now we got requests for different live shows. Lots of people are screaming for Bongo Fury era shows.
Oh, I know, and so am I. And so am I. And you know, it's a crapshoot on those 4-track tapes. There was an engineer, I believe, the engineer that was recording those tapes. They were going in and out of engineers, but oh God, what the hell is the guy? He used to work for. He works for the Beach Boys now. Bill, who is it? You know, the guy who works for the Beach Boys.
Oh, his name.
Mark Lynette. Mark Lynette.
Yes, right.
Okay. So Mark Lynette was working for Zappa during that tour, but there was other engineers before and after him on that tour. Weird. It was like Frank was going in and out of guys. So it's a real crapshoot as to the quality of the 4-tracks on that stuff. Some of it's really brittle and hard and distorted and overdriven, and some of it is actually listenable. What's weird is that a lot of those tapes, and I don't know why, but a lot of those tapes, they didn't utilize the 4th track. So you've got a stereo left and right PA mix, and you've got one track that might have isolated guitar, or might have isolated bass, or might have mono audio of the audience, and then track 4 is nothing. So our options are, like that's it.
Limited,
that's all you got. That's all you got. So
was the Bongo Fury album recorded on 4-track?
No. So that's the good news. The Bongo Fury, the Armadillo tapes were recorded on 16, I think 24 track, 2-inch 24 track. So of course there are those tapes, of course, yes. But what about the entire rest of the tour? Yeah. And by the way, what about Portuguese Lunar Landing? Right? Yep. Yeah, man. So someday.
Yeah. There are just so many freaking bootlegs out there, and folks, don't spend money on bootlegs. It's not worth it.
Well, yeah, I know Frank didn't like it either, of course.
Well, not only that, they're grossly inferior. Even if the sound is good, like if you get something off of a good FM broadcast, somebody at that radio station went and said, well, I got to edit this for time, so I'll just cut this part of what I think is the verse, and it completely ruins the continuity of the song.
Sure, absolutely. Here's how I feel about bootlegs, because obviously what Frank did in 1991 was really smart, to take handpicked ones and make them available for a decent price instead of spending outrageous prices at record conventions, right? So, but the times have changed, man. Those days are over. You can get anything that you find at a record store or a record convention or anything that might be bootleg related or unofficial. You can get any of that stuff free now on the internet, whether it be posted on YouTube or on, file sharing sites, fan sites, whatever. I mean, it's all out there. Nobody should be paying for an audience recording if it's available on the internet. I just, take your money and support the official releases and get the quality that you deserve. And so that the artist gets reaps the benefit of that. But when it comes to bootlegs, nobody should be paying for that stuff. Get it. It's all out there. Just get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all there for the downloading.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Here's a question from me personally.
Okay.
The Rage and the Fury. Is it going to happen?
It's such an amazing record. I love it so much. I had an amazing experience with Gail where she invited a specialist on Varèse's music to come to the house and hear it. And I wish I could remember this person's name. It was such a long time ago. I just remember playing that for him in my office and seeing his face. It was priceless. He knew immediately that this was an unbelievable production of this music and that it was almost the definitive versions. I mean, really.
Was it Smolinski?
I forget his name, and it might have been. It might have been. Gail was in touch with these, with these people. And so I knew that day that this album was going to be something very, very special. I mean, I knew it was special already, but when somebody that's an expert on the field comes and hears it and says, this is definitive, this is unbelievable. Yeah, there you have it. So, but the problem is that it's not Frank's music, it's somebody else's music. And so it gets entangled in some kind of weird web. And then also too, Frank, it was a gift to Frank that those sessions happened. He was not well. Yeah. He was ill, and Gail enabled that for him so that could happen in his lifetime. And it did. And he did configure a record from it. And, I think that he absolutely wanted that record to be available. The family has to be all on board in order for that to happen. It's not his music, but it's a very emotional and special journey for that family. And the time just has to be right. And although Gail definitely had her sights set on it, that trigger just wasn't pulled.
Well, I'm hoping that now with Universal and their extra muscle in the industry, maybe they can make that happen. I would hope.
It's Amit really, because it's Varèse's music, and Amit is the guy who needs to be able to make that all happen. So let's cross our fingers and hope that opportunity will come soon, because I definitely want that record to be out there for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Some fun stuff that you talked about on the Zappacast, the GTO's Permanent Damage. Is that something that you guys will be able to release?
Not only that, but the Wildman Fisher album and the Beefheart stuff, all those things that Frank produced, the opportunities to not only re-release those records, but also do expanded versions is very high. So, and this is yet another thing that we are not that we know that we can do. These are things that we know are projects that we can do. So it's not falling on deaf ears. We realize that those things need to happen. But then again, that's Amit. Amit's the one that needs to be able to pull the trigger on that stuff. So I hope so. There's so many amazing outtakes from the Wildman Fisher time period. Frank, was producing so many cool things around that time period. There's enough material to do a whole other Wildman Fisher record produced by Frank. It's great.
I believe it.
Yeah.
All right. Here's some interesting ideas that people came up with for future projects. These are things that I know don't exist, so don't say, "Oh yeah, we got that in the pipeline."
Right.
Somebody said they'd like to see a complete collection of all the original single mixes.
Oh, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, at one point, that's a great. At one point, Gail had me working on an anthology type release. You know, all these, you know, the Beatles anthology, and,
Right. Yeah.
and John Lennon had one, you know, and all that stuff. And I don't know why. I think it was she just somehow we got on the conversation about some kind of an anthology, and so I made a point of starting the anthology, the concept of the anthology, by taking every single song that was selected by either the record companies or by Frank as a single, and especially the ones that were single mixes.
Yeah.
And start with that and have the you know, from the beginning of the career to the end, have the singles represent, and the single versions, by the way, represent the arc of the anthology, and then inside that start, you know, putting little things in between it, you know, like vault stuff in between it, and things that people would really enjoy. And that was my concept, but again, that was something that never never came around. But yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. You know, some of the singles were released on Record Store Day as 7-inches.
Yeah,
you know?
I've got all of those.
Yeah, they're great.
Somebody else said, and I quote, "It's been 30 years since the last volume of You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, and I've always loved the series and would love to know if you have any desires over visiting it for a volume 7 or creating a whole new idea of a compilation album of live tracks from all eras. Maybe kind of like a one-shot deal."
Right. You know, the thing about the stage is, you remember, Bill, hearing about the Impossible concert? You know, have you heard about that? Okay. So for those that don't know, you know, there was a project that Frank did in the mid-70s called the Impossible Concert, which is basically taking performances from different years, different venues, different bands, and streaming them together as one entity, which would be completely impossible to happen because they didn't all happen at the same time. But so there you have it. And the stage series is really a larger expansion of that concept, right? I really feel like that is something that is so close to Frank. It's like Frank's idea, right? And for me to just be like, I'm gonna go and do my version of what I think Frank would do as a stage series, you know, like I would just fall under fire for that. I think that I think that there's other homes and other avenues that we can take to present the vault material, other than, you know, like going down the You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore route. You know, I think that that's Frank's. It's there. It's got him all over it. The editing, the mixing, the whole thing. It's got him all over that stuff. I don't really want to try and recreate that experience, you know, without him.
Okay. Here's something that I don't think is going to be able to happen, but I'll read it anyway. Somebody asked about the Chicago 78 show. Now, that's a fantastic CD, and that was the second show of that night. Yeah. Somebody who attended the first show wanted to say, hey, how about that show coming out? But then again, I looked at that again, and for that specific project, you had to take 3 different types of media to put that one show together.
Yeah, typical. Here's why. Because there's only one. First of all, yes, that show could come out someday. The reason why I chose the second show is because Gail asked me, I want something from that band time period, and I want it to be only a 2 CD, and that's it. Okay. And so I had to make sure that I just chose a show from that time period that she specified, because she said, I really want something, you know, from that band, the 78 time period. I said, okay. So the second show was really interesting because of what went on, like that whole improvisation that happened in there. And then also Black Napkins being a part of it, and the show just takes a deviation and it does something different than what the regular shows did at that time. So I felt that the fans would appreciate being able to hear something different than the typical show order, you know, show sequence that tour was doing, right? So that's why the second show was chosen and not the first.
Yeah, but and that's a great release. You did some great work on that.
Well, here's the thing. There's only one tape machine. And so every time reel one would run out, the guy's scrambling to put the next blank tape on the machine to start, recording. And there's a missing gap of performance, right? So it's always imperative that that I have to transfer. And I did this for Zappa Erie too, where you have to transfer all of the shows that happened before and after the selected show that you're focusing on, so that you can have the gaps covered from other performances. And also too, if it's recorded, kind of like near each other with the same engineer, then you're going to have a better chance of sonically it matching, even though it's going to be a different venue. At least it was recorded the day before or the day after, and so it's going to be slightly consistent. So that's what you have to do in the case of Chicago 78. And in the case of Zappa Erie, with these 4-track things, there's just going to be missing stuff. So gotta have the stuff to fill it in.
Okay, let me see if I can zoom through the rest of these, because I got some really out of field requests. Our friend Richard from Calvin Wazoo says, are there any tapes from the 1969 Amuji's festival concert? It was Frank was the MC and wasn't there to perform, but there is a film that exists and a YouTube thing where he's jamming with Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so I don't think that do any tapes exist of that that you know of?
No, the Mothers didn't play that thing.
Yeah.
He was just the MC, but Beefheart played it, and there's film of Beefheart playing that, and Frank introduced them, and yeah. That was where Frank met Ainsley Dunbar, and that whole partnership with Ainsley Dunbar was the birth of the Ainsley Dunbar Frank Zappa years. Well, that show, that's where they met.
Okay, let's see. Next from Calvin, he says the Tucson concerts at the University of Arizona in 1980 and 81. I was at one of those shows when John Smothers came out on stage to interrupt Frank because someone got on the bus and stole a gun. I don't remember which show it was, but I went to both of them, and I was wondering if any tapes exist of those shows.
Whoa, stole a gun. How would you know that? Was that announced on the stage? That's crazy.
I guess the announcement was made from the stage.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I would have to go and check. So in 1980, was this fall 80 or was this it had to have been, right? Or was it early 80?
All it says is the University of Arizona in 80 and 81.
Okay, well, more than likely, they're going to be on. It was recorded on 2-inch 24-track. The 81 tour was the whole 81 tour was recorded on 2-inch 2-inch 24-track, but not all of the shows are in the vault because Frank repurposed the tape for later. So only certain things are still there from the 81 tour. And only certain things are there from the Fall 80 tour as well. So I would have to go looking around and see if the Tucson shows were there. It's possible that they're probably not.
Time will tell. Somebody says, is there any tape of Eddie Van Halen jamming at the house with Steve Vai when he came out to the UMRK?
That'd be cool to find.
Yeah.
If there was, I'm sure Dweezil probably grabbed it and kept it in his house.
And on the same tone, are there any recordings of the Chieftains when they came to UMRK?
Yes.
I know that Frank used to have his soirees.
Yeah, that was all recorded. Yeah, all that stuff was recorded, and Frank was actually producing those sessions when he was there. I mean, like he had requests. He was behind all the stuff that was happening during that time. And believe it or not, there are project tapes from those recordings. So Frank literally did spend time editing together some of the things that happened. So we do have some, composer intent material from the Chieftains and from the Tuvan throat singers.
Oh man, yes.
Yeah.
So there is all sorts of unreleased studio stuff that Frank would have loved to put out, but it's still sitting there.
That's right.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody talks about somebody's asked you about this before. The 1970 Hot Rats Band record plant sessions.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Man, I'm very excited for that one. There is a ton of stuff there that I didn't even realize was there. But yeah, It's going to be good. You know, I'm excited about that release, but that release is going to be mostly instrumental. It's just mostly Hot Rat style instrumental jamming. Very long, jams in the studio, really long. And I'm not going to want to edit that stuff. I'm going to want it to be the way that it is. So, you know, we've got alternate takes of Chunga's Revenge and Transylvania Boogie. We've got some covers that they did. There's some songs that have never been heard before from those sessions, including Twinkle Tits, right? So that's in there. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's going to be a biggie. But again, it hasn't been like thrown in the back burner, and
it's not a high priority right now.
Yeah, it's in my head. It's in my head for sure.
Yeah. Okay, down to the last couple of things. Guys asking about 81 and 82 tours that Thomas Nordegg videotaped, and which opens up the door for video. Are we looking for any video in the next couple of years?
I sure hope so, because there's a lot of stuff that we could do. Yeah. And you know, at one time, Gail talked to me about doing a series of Nordegg tapes. Yeah, that would be that would have been cool. It's all single camera, you know, it's single camera shot. But Frank let him roam around on the stage anywhere he wanted.
Lens?
Yeah, on and off. Yeah, on and off. So, but the thing about it is that Nordegg was so smart because he knew the music so well that he knew who to focus on. Like if it was, you know, he knew the solo orders and he knew, you know, who was singing and who was. So he was the tapes are surprisingly really comprehensive and very fun to watch because Thomas was doing. It got better in 82. In 81, it was a little rough. It was a little guerrilla style, and there was some. There's actually Frank had a video camera on a tripod at the front of house, and then he would also have Nordegg handheld. And there was live switching happening in real time between the two cameras. And unfortunately, every time it switches between the two cameras, there's like a jolt. So like the whole, you know, you know, so it's hard to watch, right?
But you don't have the time-based corrector going in
exactly.
between.
So it just jolts and it goes, you know, but it's still cool to watch, you know, it's like, and you know, the 81 tour was fantastic. So it's great to be able to have video documents of that. And there's also single camera video documents of the 84 tour on Betamax.
Oh my God.
Yeah. with board audio, you know, so it's like it's line audio connected to the camera. It's great, but it's also hard to see. You know, you have to remember Betamax, you know, with a far wide shot of the whole place. It's like everybody's this small, you know, but it's great to see it, you know.
Let's see. Somebody said, is there any archival material that could be released from the area of Lumpy Money that wasn't on Lumpy Money?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. There were some things that Gail wanted me to put on the side for other purposes. So yeah, they're like, you know, like different mixes of stuff from Early for the Money and things like that. Also one of the things that I want to do is I want to and I've been trying, believe me, Bill, for years, but I've been trying to get all of the stereo sources that I need in order to re-edit and reconstruct the primordial version of Lumpy Gravy in stereo instead of only in mono. Because right now it's only on mono. Yeah. So I want, and I've almost found everything. In fact, there might be a couple little spots where it might switch to mono quickly, you know, just very small, but almost everything I've found in stereo. So I want to definitely do that someday.
Any talks of doing any surround stuff?
There is. And I am not there is, and I am not. I can't say anything about that. Yeah,
we won't hold you to it. We'll just hold ourselves in abeyance.
Yeah. Well, you know, Frank did a ton of surround mixing, a ton of it. He was, as we know, he was a pioneer of sound, and so he was endorsing, he was endorsing surround every chance that he could, and he went through every surround technology that there was, starting with quad, and then there was a film quad configuration for theaters that he was mixing for right around the time of Baby Snakes. And then there was a 6-channel.
Yeah, wasn't he playing with something that's kind of like Dolby Atmos, where you have the height?
Well, what it was called Circle Vision, or 6-channel surround. And at that time, it was stereo left and right in the front, stereo left and right on the side, and stereo left and right in the back. So no LFE channel, no bass channel, just 2 up, 2 side, 2 back. And he was doing a ton of mixing in 1990 and 1991 to the Sony 3324 Dash player of 6-channel surround, mixes. He was working with Spence Chrislew a lot. And he had the setup. He had his 10s in his basement like that. Yeah. And he had his 10s in his studio like that. He loved surround sound. He just loved it. And in this day and age of Dolby Atmos, which is now the next wave of the industry pushing surround, and hopefully this time it will stick. The reason why I think that Dolby Atmos is going to have a better chance of being accepted in today's marketplace than the other ones that hadn't in the past, like DVD audio and SACD, and to name a few, is because nobody wanted to mess around with the technology of what you had to do in order to enjoy it, right? You had to press certain buttons, you had to have certain settings, you had to have certain equipment, you had to have all this stuff, and nobody knew what the hell to do and what buttons to push, and they just wanted it to work. And that's the thing about Dolby Atmos, is that it just works. It's a very smart system. So like as it's being streamed into your place, it will know what your speaker setup is. It'll know. Mm-hmm. So if you're only listening to headphones, it'll know, and it'll go right to the binaural headphone experience. If you've got a sound bar in the front and maybe a couple of speakers in the back, it'll know that, and it'll truncate down to what it is. And if you've got the full 12 speaker system, it'll know that, and it'll all of a sudden just so that means less consumer bullshit and more smart bullshit, right? So let's see if Dolby Atmos actually has any if it'll have any strength in the marketplace. We'll see.
Yeah, that is exciting. Somebody was asking about the 78 Halloween stuff. And yeah, I remember that came out on the Halloween DVD audio.
Right. That's right. Yes. And so, I mean, there will be a Halloween 78 release someday, but the mix, it's the amount of work. Holy crap, it's just nuts. Frank took a razor blade to all of those master tapes. They are shredded. And in order for me to, get all that stuff back in sequence, it's like a hunt and peck mission. And then also, the amount of like snippets, you'll see all these snippets go by. And the only way that I can identify what they are is by sonically listening to them and comparing them to whatever show it might be from. Like whatever section it is, I have to listen to the audience track soloed in order to be like, okay, that sounds like it's from the 28th. Like it's unbelievable the amount of work that I'm going to have to do in order to get that together. But I'm willing to do it because we got to have it. We got to have those shows.
Well, you've given us a lot of good information. I really appreciate it. And an hour and a half has just flown by. We got to do this again sometime.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate you being interested in it, and keep up the good work. I had a good time. I hope you did too.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah, man.
So that's it. Once again, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. If you haven't seen my channel before, please check out my other videos. I got stuff about Zappa, Devo, The Residents, all sorts of weird stuff. And heck, hang around. You might learn something. So, as Joe said,
keep up the good work. I had a good time. I hope you did too.
Catch you later.